Hi, so now we are going to continue our discussion. So we are now going to have our last three theories and our last two approaches. So let's start with structural approach. Okay, so from the word itself, of course, or sometimes it's known as structuralist or structuralism approach. Okay, so from the word itself, it deals with the linguistic nature of making meanings and codes. It refers to the structure, okay, the internal structure of the text or the work, okay? So according to this approach, before we understand a bigger concept, we have to be familiar with its constitution. So constitution, which means, of course, the little parts that make up the big whole or the big chunk. Okay, the constituents or the chunks within a bigger structure follow a specific pattern, which when combined make up the overall structure. So meaning, just like a house. So before you build up your house, it consists of parang small pieces or small details such as yung hollow blocks, yung mga bakal na gagamitin. So those are the constituents of your house which make up the whole house. Okay? So katulad din sa structural approach, when you have like a work, you have an internal structure in that work. So you are going to analyze those. So like the plot, the words, the symbols that are involved in creating the totality of the work, okay, that you are trying to analyze. Okay, so when using this approach, the idea is to analyze the structure. Ayan siya, structural approach. Okay, so you analyze the constituents, the patterns, the signs, the meanings in order to understand the overarching concept. Okay? So again, you have to analyze the internal patterns, the signs that are used, the meanings, and the constituents within the work itself. Okay? So again, that's how you make structural approach work. Okay? So let's now talk about structuralism as a theory. Okay, so sometimes known as structuralist or structuralism theory. So it deals with the linguistic nature of making meanings and codes. According to, okay, so, ayun nga, sorry, naulit yung yung presentation kanina. Ito yung structuralism as a theory talaga, sorry. Okay, so structuralism is concerned with determining the general principles of literary structure and not to provide interpretations of individual texts. Okay, so meaning, when you are trying to use structuralism as a theory to analyze texts, you are going to look into the internal structure of the text and compare it to another text which shares the same or similar internal structures. Okay, so ibig sabihin, analyze nyo muna yung isang text or analyze nyo muna yung isang popular culture form or example, tapos tingnan nyo kung ano yung mga prevalent themes, ganyan, ano yung mga internal na patterns na meron siya or internal symbols, ganyan, internal signs na meron siya within that work or within the text, and then you compare it kung meron ba siyang mga kaparehas na pattern sa ibang mga examples, okay? So, reveals that there are existing patterns which can be compared if not already present to other texts. Again, you compare. Okay, so it's like an intertextual analysis. Okay, but the thing is, you are going to compare internally first before you compare it intertextually. Okay? So, titignan nyo muna kung ano yung nag-exist na pattern sa loob niya bago nyo i-compare yon dun sa mga ibang works. Okay? So, structuralism believes that things cannot be understood in isolation. Okay, so they have to be seen in the context of larger structures they are part of. That's why when we analyze using structuralism, we believe that we cannot analyze using individual texts only. Okay, so that's why we are trying to compare it to other texts, because when we compare a text to another text to another text, we can see the bigger structure that they are all part of. Okay? So magkakaroon kayo ng realization kung ano yung magkakapareha sa kanila. Okay? So with a text structure, its intertextual relation to other texts and its relation to the culture, text is a unit bigger of structure. That is culture. Okay, so ibig sabihin nun, again, you are, again, trying to have an intertextual analysis. Okay? So, at yun din yung magiging way sa atin para makita kung ano yung commonality nila sa bawat isa, para makita natin kung ano yung relation nila dun sa culture, kasi they are also a part of the culture. Okay? So, yun nga, makikita natin, yun yung tinatawag natin na structuralism. Example ng structuralism ay yung paano natin na-determine kapag ang certain songs or certain films ay kabilang sa isang genre. Halimbawa, sci-fi. Paano natin malalaman na itong mga pelikula na ito ay pasok sa genre ng sci-fi? Ginamitan sila ng structuralism. Okay? I-analyze mo na internally. Okay, ano yung nakikita natin sa film na to? Okay, may space travel, may time travel, may paggamit ng mga scientific method. Okay, may mga scientist, ganyan. Okay, so yun yung internal structure ng isang film. Tapos, yung isang film, ganun din. Meron ding scientists, meron ding space travel. Tapos, kinompare pa nila sa isa pang pelikula. Okay, meron na namang scientist, meron na namang space travel. So, lahat sila, merong something common. Okay? Merong common pattern na nag-exist sa kanila. Okay? Kaya, pwede natin silang maigrupo para makabilang sila sa isang mas malaking mas malaking structure, which is yun nga yung sci-fi. Okay? So, yun nga sabi natin dito, there is a larger structure. Okay? Because we analyze the constituents of individual texts or examples, nakita natin na there is an existing pattern that is similar with other texts or other examples. Okay, so pare-parehas sila or similar sila sa isa't isa. So may something in common sa kanila. Kaya pwede natin silang i-place sa isang bigger structure or sa bigger category, which is yun nga yung sci-fi. We cannot really categorize things into genres if we do not do structuralism. Okay? So, example nga nito, ito sobrang haba, so medyo sobrang haba nito, pero ito ay parang structuralism or structuralist study ng mga folk tales, okay? So, you have here the first sphere or introduction or exposition. So, dito yung simula ng story. So, ito yung kadalasan nangyayari. So, as I discuss this to you, try to think of a folk tale, a Disney animated film, or anything like film, TV series na may ganitong ganap. Okay? So, sa first part ng story or sa introduction, basta bandang introduction, may mangyayari na absentation. May mawawala. Okay? So, it's either may mawawalang anak, may mawawalang magulang, magkakahiwalay sila. Okay? Tapos, merong interdiction. So, merong babala dun sa hero or may babala dun sa protagonist na wag mong hahanapin yung ganito or wag kang pupunta sa ganyan kasi mapapahamak ka. So, next is violation of interdiction. Ibig sabihin, kahit na pinagbawalan siyang umalis ng bahay or pinagbawalan siyang pumunta doon, pumunta pa rin siya. Okay? So, meron naman reconnaissance, which is yung villain seeks something. Yung villain ngayon, dahil nga gusto niyang patayin yung hero, may hahanapin siya. Delivery, yung villain, mangangalap siya ng impormasyon tungkol sa hero or dun sa protagonist. Tapos, yung trickery, yung villain mismo, meron siyang lulukohin. Okay? Meron siyang mabibiktima. And complicity, yung isa sa mga bida or isa sa mga kaibigan ng bida, tutulungan nila yung kalaban na ma-discover kung nasaan talaga yung protagonist. Okay? So, lagi may nangyaring ganyan. Kahit sa Filipino movies, may ganyan. May mawawala. May mawawalang anak or merong magulang na hindi niya mahanap kung nasaan. Okay? O kaya, meron dito na yung villain or yung antagonist, hahanapin niya yung impormasyon kung nasaan yung totoong anak nung bida, tapos hindi pipigilan niya magkita sila, mga ganon-ganon. Okay, so second sphere, yung body of the story. Okay, so tapos na tayo sa introduction. So, meron villainy and lack, wherein the need is identified. So, you have the mediation. So, makikita ng hero yung lack. You have the counteraction. So, the hero chooses positive action. So, and then departure. Hero leaves on a mission. So, ito ay kadalasan kasi nangyayari sa mga folk tales. Halimbawa, meron sa Moana, 'di ba? Sa Moana, So makikita nyo dito na na merong interdiction sa Moana. Sabihin kay Moana, wag siyang umalis ng island. Pero nagkaroon siya ng violation of interdiction, umalis siya ng island. Tapos meron dito na need is identified. Tas hero discovers the lack. So nalaman ni Moana na kailangan niyang umalis para i-restore ang heart ni Tafiti para bumalik para maging healthy ulit yung soil tsaka yung water. Okay? So makikita niyo 'yon na makikita niya yung lack. So the hero chooses positive action. So si Moana pipiliin niya na mag-explore tapos aalis na si Moana, 'di ba? Ganun din yung nangyayari. May mga din sa Mulan, parehas din sa Mulan. So the need is identified. Si Mulan alam niya na yung tatay niya hindi makakalaban. So ang mangyari, kukuha siya ng positive action. So, si Mulan, nag-decide siya na lang yung papalit sa tatay niya. Si Mulan, umalis. Pumunta siya dun sa war para siya pumalit sa tatay niya. So, hero leaves on a mission. So, makikita nyo, may pare-parehas silang plot. Okay? Sa isa't isa. Okay? So, sphere, body of the story. Okay? Third sphere. So, ayan, testing, hero is challenged to prove heroic qualities. Hero responds to the test. Hero gains magical item. Hero reaches destination. Hero and villain do battle. Hero is branded. Pag branded, ibig sabihin, na siya, na-award na siya as victor. Siya yung nanalo dun sa sa laban. Villain is defeated. So, resolution, initial misfortune, or lack is resolved. Okay, so, ibig sabihin, natapos na yung need nila. Kung kanina, kailangan ni Moana i-restore yung heart ni Tefiti, dito, na-restore niya na. Ganyan. Okay, so ayun, makikita natin na hindi ko na discuss to lahat kasi sobrang dami. Search nyo na lang. Nasa module to. Tropes, tawag nito, 31 functions sa Russian folktale. Ayun. So, yun nga, pwede siyang i-research tapos try your best to parang discover parang different folk tales, different movies, different TV series na pare-parehas ng plot. Okay? Ngayon, kapag na-compare nyo na magkakaparehas sila ng plot, you are doing structuralism already. Okay? So, ayan. Katulad nito, nanghingi ako sa Facebook ng mga examples ng magkakaparehas na plot. Kasi nga, gagawin ko examples for structuralism. Katulad sa Pilipinas. Grabe, sa Pilipinas, meron tayong trope talaga about TV series na merong nawawalang anak. Halos lahat may nawawalang anak, may nawawalang tagapagmana. Okay? So, pwede natin gamitan ng structuralism itong mga to. So, you have yung Munting Heredera. Sobrang tagal na nito. Malaki na si Mona Luis Rey. Okay? Mga dalaga na itong mga to ngayon. Okay, so you have yan. May nawawalang heredera, may nawawalang anak, may nawawalang tagapagmana. So, anak sila ng mayaman, tas nawawala sila. Same din ito ng tawag nito, prima donnas. Diba? Anak din sila ng mayaman, tas nawala sila. Kasi ito din, kambal karibal. 'Di ba? Anak din sila ng mayaman tapos nawala sila. 'Di ba? Encantadia si Amihan. So anak naman siya ng reyna, nawala din siya, 'di ba? So napunta din siya sa mundo ng mga tao. So 'di ba, makikita natin, magkakapareha sila ng plot, magkakapareha sila ng conflict. So ibig sabihin, pwede natin 'to gamitan ng structuralism. Okay? Kasi we can compare the existing patterns internal patterns of these examples and then compare it intertextually with other examples. Okay? So, pwede natin gamitin yun as structuralism. So, what else? Pwede din yung mga magkakapatid na magkakaaway. So, ano ba? Yung kambal-karibal, magkaaway silang magkapatid. Etong mga to, magkakapatid, nag-away-away din. Okay? So, makikita natin doon na may mga patterns talaga na magkakaparehas. So, you can use structuralism if you're going to analyze these. Okay? Ano pa, yung magkakaparehas yung mga plot. So, halimbawa, yung pag-iibigan ng mahirap at mayaman, One True Love, Forevermore, Dolce Amore, Meteor Garden, magkakaparehas, di ba? Yung love story ng mayaman versus mahirap. Tapos, ang love story na medyo nagkakainisan muna sa umpisa. Tapos, maya-maya, nagkainlaban na sila. Yun, makikita nyo yung ganon, di ba? Na, halos pare-parehas sila ng plot. Okay? So, sa una, hindi sila magkasundo, tapos sila yung magiging magka-love team. Tapos, pagbabawalan sila ng mga magulang nila kasi yung isa mahirap, yung isa mayaman. So, they almost have the same generic plot. Okay? So, you can use structuralism kapag may nakita kayong ganito. Okay? So, ayan, isa example din ng example din ng paghihiganti naman. Okay? So, nauso ngayon yung mga babae na naghihiganti. Okay? So, ayan, you have Marimar, you have ika-anim na utos, ito, temptation of wife, ayan, tapos yung wildflower ba to? Ayan, so, makikita nyo, di ba, na halos lahat din or karamihan din sa mga palabas ngayon, pare-parehas na silang about sa mga babaeng naghihigante or babaeng pinarusahan or nasira ang pamilya dahil sa kabet. Okay? So makikita niyo doon na they have somewhat similar plots to one another. So we can use structuralism kapag may ganito tayong analysis. May ganito tayong roster ng mga examples na pwede natin i-analyze. Okay, so ayan, sobrang dami pa ng ng mga suggestions, pero hindi ko na po sila na sama lahat. Ayan. So, what are the guide questions that we can use if we are going to analyze texts or popular culture using structuralism? So, is there any pattern in structure or arrangement or plot that is considered as similar to other representations or texts? So, again, meron ba kayong napapansin na pattern between texts, okay, na na magkakapareha sila or parang similar sila to one another? Next, in other words, what patterns exist within the text that make it a product of a larger culture, construct, or structure? Okay? So, ano yung mismong pattern na nakita ninyo na pwede nyong i-assume na ito ay produkto ng isang larger construct or ng larger structure? Okay? So, halimbawa, yun nga, katulad ng trope na nawawalang anak. Okay? So, paano nyo nasabi na itong mga examples na nakuha ninyo or na-analyze ninyo ay nagpapakita nga na sila ay part nung category ng trope na merong nawalang anak. Okay? So, halimbawa yun. So, you are going to show ngayon the patterns that you have analyzed in order to prove your claim na yun nga, may nakita kayong existing pattern that is common between them. Okay, next, can we connect patterns and elements within the text to other texts from other cultures to map similarities that tell us more about the common human experience? Ngayon, nakita ninyo na ang Pilipinas ay sobrang mahilig sa mga palabas na merong halimbawa mga kabit or may nakita kayong mga patterns na nag-exist sa natin sa mga palabas natin na pare-parehas na merong nawawalang anak. So, ibig sabihin, ang mga Pilipino mahilig sa mga palabas na merong nawawalang anak. Okay? Ngayon, pwede ba natin yung i-compare naman sa ibang kultura? Kung meron bang mga ibang kultura na gusto din nila yung mga palabas na may mga nawawalang anak? Okay, so we can compare. Para, ang nangyari kasi una, we did intertextual analysis and then we got this parang conclusion that our culture likes this kind of pattern. Now, can we find other cultures naman that like the same pattern so that we could say that, halimbawa, may na-compare tayo sa Asia na mahilig din sila sa mga palabas na merong nawawalang anak. So, can we say that Asians like this kind of pattern? So, mula sa maliliit, palaki ng palaki yung bracket natin. Okay? Yung category. Okay? So, yon. So, number 4, how should the text be classified in terms of its genre? Okay? So, yun nga. Using structuralism, you can create your own genre as long as you can provide a large corpus of examples. Okay? So, number 5, what patterns exist within the text that make it a part of other works like it? Okay, so parang same lang din. Ano din yung pattern na nakita nyo dito na sa tingin ninyo ay kapares yung isang text din. Kaya sa tingin ninyo, iisa sila ng pattern. So, they are both enjoyed by the same pattern. Okay, so yun yung tinatawag natin na structuralism. Okay, so next, we are moving on to our last approach, which is postmodern approach. Okay, so postmodern approach emerged from mid to late 20th century after World War II. Okay, so the reason is put into question and surges of skepticism influence various works. So meaning, before kasi, kapag sinabi na ito yung basis. Everybody else follows it. But during the postmodern era or after World War II, parang everything was put into question. Na halimbawa, how sure are you na ito ay ganito, ganyan. Okay? So laging may question na, sure ba yan? Or how sure are you? Okay? So there is always a sense of doubt there. Okay? So yun yung tatawag natin na postmodern. Say for example, the notion of God. Okay? Before, parang no mga 1800s or no mga 1700s, of course, everybody or all people believe in God. Okay? So lahat sila naniniwala na may Diyos at alam nila na kailangan lahat ng tao ay nagsisimba kasi ito ay part ng buhay ng tao. So everybody believes that there is a God. So, yun. Pero, pagkatapos ng World War II, there are surges of skepticism that parang nagkaroon na ng iba't ibang mga belief like agnosticism and atheism. Okay? So, parang yun nga, they put the notion of God, which is before, wasn't even questioned and you cannot even question it kasi nga ma-excommunicate ka or mapaparusahan ka. Okay? So, before, the notion of God is complete. The notion of God is absolute. You cannot question it. But after World War II, people are questioning if there is really a God. Okay, so meaning, postmodern is very doubtful of everything, very skeptic about everything. Okay, so you have there the postmodern approach. You are always in question if this thing is real. Okay, so that is to sum up, postmodern is like that. Okay, so you always question if this is the reality or totoo ba talaga yon or baka we are just assuming whatsoever. Okay, so postmodern approach aims to look at texts and representations through a non-traditional or non-conventional lens. Again, you are trying to parang think outside of the box or you are trying to not to be conventional or traditional. So as much as possible, you are trying to be what? Creative or very skeptic. So, halimbawa, ito yung old way of doing things. This is the traditional way. You are trying to discover more ways to do it that is not traditional. Okay? Next, aims to question all previously known truths and conventions. Again, if there are previously known truths and conventions, you are trying to question if that is real or is that the only thing that we can do. Yun nga, katulad ng notion of God, di ba? So, people are always believe in God before, but right now, parang people are doubting if there is really a God existing. Okay? So, you are questioning what? The previously known truth, okay, or convention. So, now let's have postmodernism as a theory. So, how are we going to use postmodernism as a theory? So, actually, this is also a movement. So, it introduced a whole new way of thinking. Okay? So, again, bakit siya whole new way of thinking? Simply because before nga, no modern times, we cannot even question things. Okay? But in postmodernism, we question naman everything. Okay? So, it's different. Next, argue that there is no stable meaning for everything. Therefore, meanings and constructs can be decentered, questioned, and altered. Okay? So again, yung constructs, lahat ng alam natin na constructs can be decentered. Okay? So we can question it and we can alter it actually. Okay, so postmodernism is a direct response to the existing claims of determinism and modernism in which reason is stable and rarely questioned. Okay, so kabaliktaran naman siya ng determinism and modernism wherein everything is stable and rarely questioned. Katulad nga ng mga paniniwala sa simbahan, ganyan, na basta ganito yon. Okay, so you cannot really question it, like the reason behind some certain actions, ganyan. But postmodernism questions everything. Okay, so if modernism and determinism would say, you cannot question it because ito na siya simula noon, ganito na tayo Hindi tatanggapin yun ng postmodernism because postmodernism demands reasons behind certain actions and it questions everything. Okay? So, paano naman pagka i-analyze natin to using parang mga texts or gagamitin natin siya to analyze texts or to analyze films, to analyze TV series? Ano yung mga pwede nating tignan na mga items or ano yung mga pwede nating tignan ng mga areas na example natin ng postmodernism if we're going to use postmodernism as a theory. So, we have pastiche. Okay, so yung mga pastiche, pag tinawag nating pastiche, ito yung parang pinagtagpi-tagpi na mga iba't ibang mga examples or iba't ibang mga forms or iba't ibang mga references, and then ang gagawin natin is pagtatagpi-tagpiin natin siya sa loob ng isang work. Okay, may example tayo ng pastiche. We have fragmentation. Okay, fragmentation is we have puputol-putulin natin yung mga yung timeline. Okay, so we are going to distort the timeline. So yun yung tinatawag natin na fragmentation. Halimbawa, ang mangyayari is yung nauna is yung conflict, ay nauna yung yung resolution, tapos sumunod yung parang tawag nito sumunod yung exposition, yung simula ng story, tapos biglang yung climax, tas conflict. So hindi natin alam kung ano yung timeline. Okay, so example ng fragmentation, if you're familiar with The Witcher sa Netflix, yung The Witcher, yun, example yun ng fragmented story kasi naka-distort yung timeline. So, hindi natin alam kung ano yung nauuna, ano yung nagsasabay. Okay, so you have there fragmentation. Ano pa may ibang example ng fragmentation? Fragmentation could be Memento by tawag nito, by Christopher Nolan. Yon, pwede rin yung fragmentation. Fragmentation also, pwede rin yung Kill Bill. Yon, pwede rin yon. Okay? So, paradox. Syempre, yung paradox is yung iba yung pinapakita, iba din yung sinasabi, or magkaiba yung gusto nila. Halimbawa, ang sinasabi ay, ang genre niya ay comedy, pero hindi naman nakakatawa yung niya, yung pinapakita niya. So, yun, pwede yun. Dark comedy, yun, example ng paradox. Kasi, comedy siya, pero hindi naman nakakatawa talaga yung pinapakita niya. Kasi nga, medyo dark yung themes niya. So, hindi mo alam kung matatawa ka ba doon o hindi. So, unreliable narrators. So, unreliable narrators is you don't know if what's happening is actually legit or kung ano man yung nangyayari, hindi mo alam kung dapat mong paniwalaan because even the narrator, even the storyteller inside the film or the TV series or basta inside nung work or ng representation is unreliable. Okay? So, hindi mo alam kung dapat ka maniwala sa kanya o hindi. So, you have also embedded narrative. Pag sinabing embedded narrative, this is a story within a story. Okay? So, you have a story within a story. So, that is embedded narrative. So, halimbawa, you have Titanic. Alam ko yung Titanic, siya, embedded narrative siya kasi parang you are watching parang current timeline and then you are watching yung story ng Titanic within a story which is told by Rose. Okay, so you have embedded narrative. Often unrealistic and downright impossible plots. Okay, so halimbawa, unrealistic and downright impossible plots. Halimbawa, si Saitama sa One Punch Man. Ayun, so very impossible na isang punch niya lang sobrang lakas niya na or nakuha niya lang sa training niya na nakalimutan ko yung training regimen niya, basta yon na pag ginawa mo yon magiging ganun kakalakas yon. So yan, example din yan ng postmodernism. Parody, yan, yung mga parody, I'm sure you're already familiar with that. Metafiction, okay, so parang yun ang metafiction naman, it's fictional already, tapos you are making fiction pa. Example nun ay Ruby Sparks. Okay, so fictional na nga yung yung mismong kwento ng Ruby Sparks and then parang may nangyari pa na fictional something dun sa sa loob. Okay, you have also paranoia and then dark humor. Yun nga, example din ng dark comedy. So, ayan, example ng postmodernism, you have Ruby Sparks. Ayan, so metafiction, ito na, it's a fictional work wherein something fictional also happens. Ayan, so, yan nga. So, parang fiction within a fiction. So, that's metafiction. This is an example of pastiche. Okay? Ito yung example naman ng pastiche. Pag sinabing pastiche, again, pinagalo-halo siya. So, halimbawa, sa isang work, which is Wreck-It Ralph, so, sa isang work, pinagsama-sama niya yung mga iba't ibang mga Disney film na individual Disney film. So, that's what you call pastiche. Okay? So, magkakaibang references or magkakaibang palabas, tapos pagsasama-samahin nyo sila sa loob ng isang work. Another example of that is Bohemian Bohemian Rhapsody, example ng pastiche. Bakit naging pastiche yung Bohemian Rhapsody as music? Because it involves different genres in one song. So may opera, may parang rock, may kung ano-anong genre. Basta alam ko parang may 7 genre sa loob ng Bohemian Rhapsody. So that is an example of postmodern music naman. Kasi nga, yung mga alam nating music before, isa lang yung parang melody nila eh. Parang meron silang pattern all throughout na naglalast. Pero yung Bohemian Rhapsody, pinaghalo-halo. It's a pastiche of different genres of music. Okay? So you have here fragmentation or time distortion. Okay, so you have moments of love and then you have Grazilda. And hindi ko alam kung naabutan niyo yung Grazilda, pero itong kwento nitong Grazilda, si Glyza to eh. Ang nangyari dyan is si Grazilda ay kapatid ni Cinderella sa libro. Tapos si Grazilda ay parang nangyari, lumabas siya sa libro. Tapos siya yung naging protagonist. 'Di ba siya contributor siya sa kwento ng Cinderella. Tapos lumabas siya mula sa libro, tapos nagkaroon siya ng sarili niyang buhay. So si Grazilda 'yon. Okay? So isang example to ng metafiction na naman. Okay? So ito naman ay isang example ng fragmentation wherein there is time distortion. Okay? So may time distortion. So ang nangyari naman is si Ding Dong Dantes ay galing sa present time. Si Isa Calzada naman ay galing sa past. Okay? So, nangyari, nakakapag-usap sila sa pamamagitan ng lumang telepono. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, there is parang, yun nga, a distortion of time. Okay? And then, we have Kingmaker. Ito ay naging trending din. So, kwento siya ni Imelda Marcos about their life as Marcoses nung namumuno pa si Ferdinand Marcos. And then, ang speculation dyan is she was a very unreliable narrator all throughout the film. Okay? So, showing about unreliable narrators din. Okay, so we have Matrix. Ito, Matrix din. Bakit naging postmodern naman yung Matrix? It's because it's questioning reality, right? Ano yung perception natin about reality? That this is the real life. But in Matrix, it questioned if you are really living in reality. Kasi nga, dun sa Matrix, pinakita nila na ang reality na alam natin is not really the real world. The real world exists there, and this is only an illusion. Okay? So, makikita doon, again, you are questioning everything. You are doubting if this is the real life. Okay? Another example of postmodernism, we have SpongeBob. Kasi nga, di ba, downright impossible plots, right? Nasa loob sila ng tubig, pero meron silang fire. So, paano nangyayari yun? What laws of physics apply? Okay, in this series, right? So, makikita natin, it's very postmodern kasi hindi siya nagko-comply sa conventional truths na alam natin na kapag nasa ilalim ng tubig, we cannot light up a matchstick. Pero dito, sila ay nakakapagluto, sila ay nakakapag-bonfire. Ayan. So, makikita natin, again, the conventional truths are being questioned or being shattered ng mga palabas na to. Kaya siya postmodern. Okay, what else? The Road. Itong The Road naman ay isang example naman natin ng unreliable narrators din. And fragmentation. Kasi yung time nila dito hindi dire-diretso. Okay, so the time was fragmented actually. So we can see in The Road, it is fragmented as well as the unreliable narrators. Makikita din natin dito. Okay, so yan, postmodernism, the questions that we could ask is, does the work or representation show features that are in contrary with the traditional ways of presenting truths and constructs? So, meron ba siyang pinapakita ng mga features na hindi nag-a-abide by the conventional truths na alam natin? So, how does the work undermine or contradict generally accepted truths? O paano niya pinapakita or paano niya kino-contradict yung mga generally accepted truths? What are the stylistic devices that were used to highlight the non-conventional assets of the representation? So, ano yung mga stylistic devices naman na ginamit nila para talagang makita or ma-emphasize yung non-conventional assets ng work or ng representation. So, how does a work fulfill or move outside the established conventions of its genre? So, ano yung mga ginawa niyang ways on how to parang move outside dun sa conventions? Okay, so what kind of devices, what kind of features ang ginamit niya? So, halimbawa, nagkaroon ba siya ng fragmentation? Nagkaroon ba siya ng unreliable narrator? Nagkaroon ba siya ng impossible plots? So, pastiche, ano ginamit niya? So, paano niya finulfill yung kanyang role na to go outside of the normally established conventions or constructs that we have? So, yun. Ganun yung mga gagamitin natin for postmodernism. Again, if you have any questions, read your module because maraming mga information pa doon. And last theory that we are going to use is deconstruction. So, movement started by the French philosopher Jacques Derrida. Okay, so it aims to dismantle the existing constructs in the representations of society in texts, culture, and popular culture. Okay, so again, dismantle the constructs from the word itself, deconstruction. Okay, so there are your constructs. So, ibig sabihin yung norms that is normally accepted, the usual conventions that we have in the society, and then you are going to break that. Okay, kaya siya deconstruction. You're going to deconstruct. Okay, so bubuwagin mo yung mga constructs na meron tayo. So, it exposes the gaps, the incoherences, and the contradictions in the discourse and how a text undermines itself. Okay, so parang nangyari, sinasabotage mo yung mga yung mga constructs na meron ka rin sa sarili mo. Okay? So you expose the gaps again, the incoherences and the contradictions. You are trying to sabotage the constructs that have been established before. Okay? So, deconstructs the traditional trains of thought built and imposed by the society and cultures. Actually, pare-parehas lang yung definition dito eh. Basta meron lang, just to put it simply, deconstruction is meron tayong constructs of society or common stereotypes or common conventions na meron tayo sa society, and then we're just going to deconstruct everything. Okay? We are going to change or alter everything. Okay? So, again, you are going to abolish binary constructs dictated by the society and accept that there can be categories that are neither or both of the two. Okay? So, you have what we call as privileged. Okay, so under deconstruction, you have two categories, which are, number one, this side is the privileged, and then this side is the underprivileged. Okay? So, halimbawa, sa deconstruction kasi, may tawag tayo lagi ng mga constructs. Ano yung mga constructs natin sa society? We have good versus evil. Again, binary. Okay? We have binary concepts. So, if you're not good, definitely you are evil. According to, to conventional concepts or conventional constructs. So, you have good and evil. If you're not evil, then you're good. If you're not good, then you are evil. Simple as that. So, white or bright colors is associated with good. Black or dark colors associated with evil. So, kapag may kontrabida, laging dark colors. So, kapag mabait naman, laging white or bright colors ang suot. Pag day, masaya. Pag night, lonely or dangerous or unsafe. Kapag male, strong. Pag female, weak. Pag beautiful, good or innocent. Pag pangit, bad, dangerous. Kaya nga 'di ba, makikita natin kapag may bida, laging maganda. Tapos pag may kontrabida or may gagawa ng krimen, laging pangit. Ganun. Kasi nga, yun yung association eh. Ganun eh. Pag friend, supportive. Pag foe or kalaban, aggressive. Okay? Pag freedom, yung freedom na physical, ayun, 'di ba? Yung freedom na hindi ka nakakulong, pag hindi ka nakakulong, malaya ka, 'yun, free ka na. Pag pag slave, yun din. Pag sinabing slave, kailangan physical, nakakulong ka or may nagmamay-ari sa'yo. But not all the time, okay? So, in deconstruction, we are going to deconstruct these constructs, okay? Or these concepts, okay? Just like, halimbawa, hindi porket hindi ka good, evil ka na agad. Pwede ka naman na maging neutral, okay? O kaya, hindi lahat ng white or bright colors ay mabuti. Minsan, may mga white or bright colors na masama. Meron din na black or dark colors na mabuti. Halimbawa, si Batman, di ba? Naka-black siya or naka-dark color, pero kakampi siya ng mga naapi. Okay, so mga ganon. Okay, so, halimbawa, day, hindi naman porket day, masaya. Okay? So, sometimes may mga day na malungkot din. Hindi porket male ka, kailangan malakas ka. Kasi may mga males din naman na effeminate. Okay? Pero hindi naman ibig sabihin na effeminate sila, bakla na rin sila. Okay? So, yun nga. May mga makikita tayo dito na mga constructs na we can deconstruct actually. So, may mga minsan may beautiful, pero hindi naman innocent, hindi naman good. Okay? So, may mga pangit, pero mabuti naman yung kalooban. Okay? So, yung mga yan, example. So, katulad yan, I see Maleficent. So makikita natin dito si Maleficent. This is one of the greatest deconstructive movies na inanalyze namin nung college kasi in example ng prof namin dito is si Maleficent nga ay isang example ng deconstruction. Why? Because we can see Maleficent was depicted as an antagonist for a long time. Okay? So until nung ito ay pinalabas yung Maleficent, we saw the backstory of Maleficent. And then we saw that she was capable of loving, ganyan, that she was also a victim. So we saw her good side. So hindi ibig sabihin na si Maleficent ay bad. So she can be good also. So na-deconstruct yung kanyang previous previous niya na character. Okay? So, siya ay nakaitim, nakakatakot yung itsura niya, intimidating, but she is as good as a mother to Aurora. Okay? So, nakita natin na na-deconstruct siya. What else? Si Merida. So, na-deconstruct din doon sa movie, nag-deconstruct din yung role ng babae na parang prize to be won. Okay? Na-deconstruct yung role ng babae na siya ay kailangan lang maging lady and prim and proper, kailangan matuto siya laging manahe and all, ganyan, na ang babae ay pwede rin na gumawa ng mga bagay na ginagawa ng mga lalaki. Okay? So, yun. Si Merida is an example din ng deconstruction. So, it deconstructed the common conventions on what should a woman be. Okay? So, next is we have Tooth Fairy. Yan, makita natin si Dwayne Johnson. So, ito, ang palabas niya ay Tooth Fairy. So, makikita natin na hindi porket lalaki ka at bato-bato ang katawan mo, hindi ka na pwede mag-tutu, at hindi ka na pwede mag-ballet at magsuot ng fairy wings. So, it's a deconstruction on the stereotypical man or stereotypical male. Okay? So, parang, di ba, ang lalaki hindi pwede magsuot ng, ng pink, ang lalaki hindi pwede magsuot ng tutu, ng ballet costume, hindi pwede magsuot ng fairy wings, ganyan. Pero nakita natin si The Rock, si Dwayne Johnson, isa sa pinaka mabato ang katawan sa sa Hollywood. Ginawa niya to. So, it deconstructed the stereotypical view on what a man should be. Okay? And of course, we have My House Husband dito sa Pilipinas, our local film, na nag-deconstruct ng role ng lalaki sa pamilya. Kasi dito sa Pilipinas, we are parang sanay na ang mga lalaki, sila yung mga dapat mag-provide para sa family, and then yung babae yung dapat nasa bahay, nag-aalaga ng kids. Pero because of the reversal of roles in My House Husband, anong nangyari is na-deconstruct yung family roles or na-deconstruct yung gender roles sa loob ng pamilya, na males can also be parang caring with their family. Males can also be a house husband, and there's nothing wrong with that. No one should be ashamed of that. Okay, na ang mga babae, they could also provide for the family. They could be the ones na kumikita, kumakayod ng pera. At yung mga lalaki, pwede naman na sila yung nag-aalaga sa mga bata at naglilinis ng bahay at naiiwan sa bahay. Okay? So, this is an example of course, deconstruction also, kasi it deconstructed the common connotation of gender roles in the family. Okay? So, yun nga. So, ito ay mga examples ng deconstruction. So, again, you are trying to deconstruct the constructs. As simple as that. Okay? So, another example is Megamind. Ayan. So, yun nga. Isang example ng Megamind na hindi lahat ng hindi kagwapuhan or hindi lahat ng masasama ay masasama na rin. Pwedeng maging good ang evil. Okay? So, yun. Nadi-deconstruct yung natin, yung view natin na pag ganito ka, evil ka. Okay? So, evil siya before, pero yun nga, pwede siya maging good person. Okay? So, yun yung Megamind deconstruction din yung pinapakita niya. Na yun nga, na antagonists can be good people too. Okay? So, we have also Johnny English. Ito naman, usually kasi common connotation natin pag nalaman natin na agent, 'di ba? Secret agent, parang laging James Bond, laging astig, laging very efficient sa work. Pero because of Johnny English, parang we saw parang a different light. Ay, we saw secret agents in a different light. Parang nakita natin na yun, may mga pumapalpak din, ganyan, na deconstruct din yung mga secret agent na hindi sila impeccable, hindi sila invincible. They can also commit mistakes. Okay, so we na-deconstruct yung tingin natin na yung mga secret agents ay super cool and hindi sila nagkakamali, ganyan. Okay, so we also have Ender's Game. So if you're familiar with this film, Ender's Game, ayun, makikita natin yung Ender's Game na yung antagonists dito ay hindi natin in-expect yung na ganun talaga sila. So na-deconstruct yung kanilang character na the antagonists, if we think about it, are not really antagonists. Okay? So na-deconstruct yung previous natin na na connotation na antagonists, aliens who are antagonists are always parang adverse. Parang they aim to parang magkaroon ng adverse effect sa atin or saktan tayo. So, not really the case. So, makikita natin na ito ay isang example din natin ng deconstruction. Kasi yung antagonists na tingin natin ay lagi yung mga aliens. Pero kung tutuusin, ang antagonist talaga ay mga sarili natin. Okay? So, yun. And tinatawag natin na deconstruction. Okay, so, ayan. Sorry, it's not postmodernism. It should be deconstructionism. Deconstruction na. Okay, so what are the binary oppositions presented in the text or media? So again, take note, ito ayan, deconstruction. Okay? So what are the binary oppositions presented in text or media? So what binary oppositions yung pinakita nila? Okay, diba? Good or evil, beautiful or ganito, dark versus light, ganyan. Okay? So, which member or category shows privilege or positive connotation? So, between the two binary opposition, sino dun yung privileged, okay? So, how about the underprivileged or negative connotation? So, sino naman yun? Kasi, before we deconstruct, we must know what are the binary oppositions that we need to deconstruct. Okay, so we have to list them first. Okay, so ayan. Dito sa first two bullets, we are finding out kung sino sa, ano yung mga binary oppositions na meron tayo, sino yung privileged or positive, sino yung directed as negative. Okay, so pag meron na tayo mga constructs na, na conventional, we are now going to deconstruct them. Okay, so how does the text or media dismantle the traditional constructs presented? So in this case, we already presented the privileged and underprivileged categories. Okay? Now, we have these lists. Ngayon, alin dito yung dinismantle at paano dinismantle or paano sila diniconstruct? Okay? Next, what elements are used to highlight the deconstruction of constructs? So, what did the text or parang what did the representation do in order to highlight or to emphasize the deconstruction that they did? Okay? So, yun po yung end natin ng deconstruction as well as the whole presentation. So, we already finished the main theories and approaches that we are going to use in analyzing popular culture. So, we are going to discuss this in class. So, I suggest that you watch all of these video lessons, you read and annotate your module, you click the link or you copy and paste the link na nakalagay doon sa sa module ninyo para panoorin nyo yung mga supplementary videos na meron tayo. Okay? So, if you have any questions, kindly raise it sa synchronous classes natin because you are going to have an activity regarding these theories and approaches. So, it's better that you know how to analyze popular culture using these theories and approaches. Okay, so thank you everybody. So this is the end of Unit 2.